The skies above planet Varela turned dark before the first explosion even hit the ground. What started as a diplomatic meeting between human envoys and the Zalari Empire twisted into something no one expected. Smoke and fire replaced the glowing towers of peace. The treaty talks ended in flames. Commander Rhys Vallon didn't know why the princess laughed. She had stood tall in her obsidian armor, emerald skin glowing under firelight, and called his soldiers soft, weak, breakable. Her voice had echoed across the valley while her guards stood behind her like statues. She laughed louder when the first human tank exploded. The humans weren't prepared for betrayal. They came with translators, peace scrolls, and food supplies. The Zalari came with heat lances, plasma spears, and war cries. By the time the human soldiers drew their weapons, half of them were gone. Rhys had seen war before, but not like this. Not against creatures who moved like wind and hit like thunder. The ground cracked where they landed. Their weapons melted. Armor, their war beasts howled like storms. Rhys ordered retreat, not to escape, but to regroup and survive. He never forgot how she smiled. Princess Zarentha, daughter of the Flame Throne, watched with glowing orange eyes as humans bled into the dirt. She called it cleansing the weak from the land. He called it a massacre. The humans were pushed to the canyon's narrow lands of lava rivers and jagged rock. It was the only place their dropships could still reach. Rhys led the last surviving unit, dragging the injured and carrying the dying. Zarentha watched from a distance, always riding a fire beast and laughing at their struggle. One night, Rhys returned to the edge of the lava fields. His armor cracked from heat, his throat dry from smoke. And there she stood again, watching him. From a ledge above, no guards this time, no beast, just her. Still smiling. Still calling him weak, Rhys didn't answer her words. He simply stepped barefoot onto a glowing rock bridge stretched over the lava. The stone burned, his feet blistered, but he didn't stop. He walked right through the firestorm, never breaking his stare. She stopped laughing that day. Zarentha had never seen a human bleed and smile. Never seen one burn and keep walking. She tilted her head, confused and curious. What kind of weakness bleeds but does not fall? That night, something changed. She no longer looked at him as prey. She looked at him like he was a riddle she couldn't solve. A creature that shouldn't exist. Her fireproof skin never knew pain. His flesh cracked with it, yet he moved forward. Rhys made it to the dropship. Ridge. He saved 3 more wounded men that day. He never spoke of the princess. Never told anyone she watched him suffer. But she never left that ledge again. She returned every night. In the days that followed, Rhys learned how to fight back. He studied the heat patterns, the lava flows, the flame beast tracks. And slowly, the humans began winning small battles. Not because they were stronger, but because they endured. The Zalari didn't understand endurance. Pain was foreign to them. Their skin resisted flame. Their lives were short and powerful. But humans didn't break easily. They crawled when they couldn't walk. They fought when they couldn't breathe. And Rhys was the sharpest blade among them. Princess Zarentha watched it all. Each time she looked at him, something inside her twisted. A whisper in her blood told her not to admire the human, but admiration turned to obsession. She wanted to test him herself, so one night she left her guards. No throne, no weapons, only a whisper to the wind that she would return with the human's head. And she descended into the lava fields alone. She thought it would be easy. Just one more step in proving humans were beneath her. But that night would write a story no fire could erase. Asterisk, the lava cracked beneath her boots, sending up sparks like angry fireflies. Princess Zarentha had never walked this deep into the canyon before. The heat didn't hurt her, but the silence did. There were no guards, no soldiers. Just her breath and the boiling world around her. She followed the scent of iron and smoke. The humans were close. She could hear the clink of their broken armor, the groans of the injured, the soft hum of their metal shelters trying to resist the heat. It all sounded pitiful, weak, yet she was drawn to it. Rhys stood alone at the edge of the camp, sharpening his blade. His hands were blistered. His face was dirt-covered. But his eyes burned with something brighter than flame. He sensed her before. He saw her. Zarentha stepped into the open. Her presence turned every soldier's head. Some reached for weapons. Others froze in place. Rhys raised a hand and they all lowered their arms. The air thickened. The lava hissed louder. She walked straight toward him without fear. "You followed me," Rhys said quietly. His voice didn't carry hate. Just calm, as if he had expected her. "I came to see the weakness up close," she replied. "To see why the flames failed to destroy you." Rhys tilted his head. "You're not here to kill me, are you?" Zarentha didn't answer. Her glowing eyes scanned his scars, his burnt hands, his cracked lips. She reached out and touched the edge of his armor, curious. It was still warm from lava spray. He didn't flinch. "You bleed like water," she whispered. "But you walk through fire." Rhys didn't smile. "Fire doesn't decide strength. The will to carry others does." Her brow furrowed. That was not the answer she expected. For a moment, she stood there, uncertain. Something about him made her heart beat strangely. Not from fear, not from anger, but something else she had no word for. Suddenly, a quake shook the canyon. Lava surged nearby, tearing through the rock. One of the human med tents collapsed with a scream inside. Without hesitation, Rhys ran toward the flames. Zarentha followed, not because she cared, but because she wanted to see why he risked himself again. The lava had spread between him and the tent. The path was gone. The fire roared in waves, yet Rhys didn't stop. He leaped across a burning ledge and landed hard. The princess froze. No one would survive that heat. But then she saw him emerge, holding a small wounded soldier on his back. His skin smoked. His lips trembled, but he kept moving. One step, then another. A molten rock snapped under his foot. He stumbled. The wounded man cried out. But before Rhys could fall, she jumped. Her alien feet landed beside him. She grabbed his arm without a word and steadied him. Together, they stepped across the final rock. The camp was silent. Everyone stared at her. A Zalari royal princess, touching a human, saving a human. Her hands glowed with heat, but she didn't let go. Rhys gently set the soldier down and turned to her. "You didn't have to help." "I didn't," she said firmly. "I wanted to see if your legs would melt." He almost smiled. Almost, but the moment passed. The fire still burned around them. The silence grew heavier. Then the princess did something that shocked them all. She sat down beside the humans. Not as a prisoner, not as a conqueror, but as a curious witness to something her kind had never understood. And for the first time in her life, she didn't laugh at human weakness. She began to study it. The humans didn't know what to do with her. Some kept their hands on weapons. Others avoided looking at her eyes. But Rhys treated her like anyone else. No fear, no hatred. Just quiet respect. Zarentha observed everything. How humans stitched wounds with shaking fingers. How they shared water even when thirsty. How they lifted the dying with trembling arms. She had never seen strength look like that. She remembered her own people, how they crushed weakness, mocked pain, and cast the broken aside. But here, among the injured and exhausted, she saw no mockery. Only unity. Rhys worked beside her, never asking for help, but never pushing her away. When she handed him bandages, he nodded. When she brought water, he accepted it. Slowly, their movements became part of the same rhythm. One night, a wounded soldier screamed in fever. His skin blistered from flame. The others held him down. He begged for release. Rhys sat by his side, whispering softly until the man slept again. Zyrintha didn't understand how words could soothe pain more than medicine. Later, she asked, "Why do you stay with them? You could have escaped. Left them behind." Rhys looked at the stars beyond the burning sky. "Because they would never leave me behind." The answer struck her deeper than she admitted. In Zalari culture, loyalty ended at pain. In human hearts, it seemed to begin there. Days passed. The lava field shifted. Heat waves came stronger. Food supplies ran low. Still, the humans stayed together. Still, Rhys moved like a quiet leader. And still, the princess watched with curiosity that turned into something else. She began to ask questions. About Earth, about human children, about music and weather, and why humans laughed even in suffering. Rhys answered each one with patience. He never spoke down to her, never feared her royal blood. One evening, she brought him a gift, a strange glowing fruit from the cliffside. In her world, it was reserved only for warriors of highest flame. Rhys took it with gratitude and shared half with a wounded girl nearby. Zyrintha's hands clenched when she saw that. "You gave it away," she said. "Do you not value what is rare?" "I do," Rhys replied. "That's why I shared it." She had no reply for that. Only silence. That night, she sat alone by the lava. Her thoughts churned hotter than the river beside her. She began to wonder what made a creature like him exist in a world so cruel. In the dark, she touched her chest where her heart beat slower than his, but it beat faster now than it ever had before. And she didn't understand why. The next day, scouts brought word. A Zalari war horde was approaching. Her people thought she was captured. They were coming to burn everything and take her back by force. The humans prepared for battle. They had no war machines left, no heavy guns. Only steel, will, and each other. Zyrintha stood among them in silence. Rhys turned to her. "If you want to leave, now is your chance. We won't stop you." She didn't step away. Instead, she reached behind her back and drew her twin plasma blades. Her voice was calm. "I am Flameburn. I do not run." And for the first time, she fought not against humans, but beside them. The canyon became a furnace of war. Zalari troops descended like falling stars, riding flame beasts and wielding fire lances. They expected an easy slaughter. What they met instead was human defiance. Rhys led the charge, moving through fire like it feared him. His blade was chipped, his armor scorched, but his steps never slowed. The soldiers followed him with broken shields and unshakable hearts. Beside him, Princess Zyrintha struck like lightning. Her blades cut through her own kind, their eyes wide with betrayal. The warriors shouted her name, but she didn't answer. She had chosen a new battlefield. A new truth. The fighting raged for hours. Lava splashed. Smoke burned eyes. Steel clashed with heat. Bodies fell on both sides, yet the humans didn't break. They stood as one wall of pain, fury, and love. At one point, a Zalari war beast leaped toward the wounded at the rear. Zyrintha reacted first, diving through the smoke. Her blades spun, and the beast roared as it fell. Her armor cracked. Blood dripped down her green cheek. But she stood tall. Rhys reached her just in time to see her stagger. He caught her before she collapsed. For the first time, she looked up at him not as a warrior or a royal, but as something uncertain and vulnerable. "I thought you were weak," she whispered. "And now," he asked. "I see I didn't understand strength," she said. The battle turned. Not because the humans had more numbers, not because they had better weapons, but because the sight of their commander and the alien princess fighting together lit a fire greater than lava. Some of the younger Zalari soldiers hesitated. They saw her fighting for the humans, saw her bleeding beside them. Their loyalty faltered. Their strikes grew weak. Their lines wavered. Rhys used it. He called out orders like a storm, His voice rallied the broken. His shield defended the last medic tent. His blade never stopped moving. Zarantha was always near his side, like fire, dancing beside iron. By nightfall, the ground was littered with ash and steam. The Zalari war horde began to retreat, their morale shattered, their faith shaken, and their fire dimmed. The human survivors stood in silence, too tired to cheer, too sore to speak. But their eyes burned with victory. Not the victory of conquest, the victory of survival. Zarantha looked at the faces around her. She saw trust, respect, and something she had never earned before: belonging. She turned to Reese and asked quietly, "What happens now?" He looked toward the stars above the smoke. "Now we rebuild. Together, if you'll stay." She didn't answer with words. She stepped closer, shoulder brushing his, and stood with him at the edge of the lava field. And this time, when she looked into the fire, she didn't feel like she was looking alone. The battlefield turned quiet for the first time in days. The only sound left was the wind carrying the ash. The humans were tired, but not broken. They had defended their camp and stood against a force that should have destroyed them. Zarantha sat near the edge of the lava stream, watching its slow red flow. Her blades rested beside her. Cracks ran through her armor. Her body ached, but something deeper stirred in her chest. She had fought for her people before, for her empire, for her pride. But this time she fought for something else. She fought for the humans who had shown her what her people never could. They had given her purpose beyond blood and flame. Reese sat beside her. He didn't say anything at first. He simply handed her a water flask and leaned back against a rock. His fingers were bandaged, his eyes half closed, but his presence remained strong. "They'll come again," Zarantha said quietly. "My father won't stop. Not until I'm back in chains or buried in ash." Reese nodded. "Then we prepare, and we don't run." She studied him. There was no fear in his voice, no doubt, only the calm of someone who had already accepted death and chosen to fight anyway. That calm disturbed her more than threats ever had. "I could try to talk to them," she offered. "Convince the High Council to stand down." "They won't." "Listen," Reese said. "You know that better than I do." She nodded. He was right. Once, she had thought the Empire was flawless. But now she saw cracks in every corner, the way they crushed mercy, the way they shamed those who felt love, the way they feared anything they could not control. She looked at him again. "Then, I'll stay, and I'll fight, even if it's against my own blood." Reese looked at her, and for the first time, his expression softened. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small metal charm. It was shaped like a shield, dented, old, carved with the symbol of Earth's first space battalion. "This belonged to the soldier who saved me during my first mission. I kept it to remind me why I survive." He handed it to her. Her fingers closed around it. The metal was cool against her palm, but it felt heavier than any weapon she had ever held. A symbol of loyalty, of sacrifice, of hope. "I don't deserve this," she said. "You do now," Reese replied. That night, the humans lit no fires. They didn't need to. The sky itself burned with the warning of what would come. The Empire would not forgive betrayal, and they would send their best to destroy what they now saw as a rebellion. But the humans were no longer alone. They had a princess who once laughed at their pain. Now she stood between them and her own kind. Blades ready, heart changed, and for the first time, the humans began to believe they could do more than just survive. They could win. The next dawn arrived heavy with silence. No birds, no wind, just the stillness before destruction. From the eastern cliffs, the humans spotted it first, a fleet of burning vessels descending through the smoke-filled sky. The royal fleet had come. Reese stood at the edge of the ridge with a battered pair of binoculars. He watched the formation. closely, lips pressed tight. He didn't flinch when the sky cracked with thunder from the descent engines. Zyrintha joined him. Her armor had been reforged overnight by the camp's engineers. It still bore cracks, but the new silver-lined plates shone against the red sky. She looked every part a warrior, yet something in her gaze was different now. "They sent the Red Guard," she said quietly. "Elite royal blades. My father's personal enforcers." Rhys didn't turn. "Will they hesitate to kill you?" She shook her head once. "No." Then the ground began to tremble. The lead ships struck the cliffside and dropped their ramps. Rows of soldiers marched out in perfect formation, glowing red armor humming with energy. They were trained for perfection. Programmed to eliminate anything imperfect, Rhys walked down the ridge toward the camp, everyone to defense positions. "This is the last wave. Either we fall today, or they do." No one questioned him. Not even once. The medics grabbed rifles. Engineers picked up pistols. Wounded soldiers used their one good arm to steady a blade. No one ran. Zyrintha moved to the front line. She didn't stand above them. She stood with them. Her hands gripped her plasma blades, but her heart carried something sharper. Her old self had died in the lava fields. What stood now was reborn in ash. The Red Guard advanced without emotion, without words. Their weapons burned through the first barrier. But the humans didn't retreat. They waited, held, then countered. The first charge was stopped by courage and blood. In the middle of the chaos, Rhys found himself face to face with a towering Zalari commander. The brute swung a plasma hammer with the strength of thunder. Rhys dodged narrowly, then countered. With a deep slash to the knee, the commander roared and lifted the hammer again. Before it struck, a green blur sliced through the air. Zyrintha's twin blades pierced the enemy's chest. The commander fell without a sound. She didn't even pause to look back. Together, Rhys and Zyrintha fought like two sides of the same flame. She moved fast and precise. He moved hard and unyielding. Their coordination was silent but perfect. The soldiers around them drew strength from the sight. Then came the final push. A royal dreadnought stepped forward, the size of a transport pod, covered in flame armor, its face hidden behind a smooth red mask. It raised a weapon larger than any Rhys had seen. The humans froze. Even Zyrintha hesitated. One blast from that cannon could erase half the camp. But before it could fire, Rhys ran forward. He charged across molten ground. His armor peeled from the heat. His lungs burned. He reached the dreadnought and leaped. His blade plunged into the side panel, twisting deep. The knight howled in static, then the cannon misfired. The weapon backfired and exploded in a flash of blue and red flame. Rhys was thrown backward. He hit the ground hard and didn't move. The dreadnought collapsed beside him, smoking and broken. The battlefield stopped. For one long moment, nothing moved. Then Zyrintha rushed to him. She dropped to her knees and pulled off his helmet. His face was covered in ash and blood. His chest barely rose. Her fingers trembled as she touched his skin. "Open your eyes," she whispered. "You didn't carry me through fire just to die in it yourself." And slowly, with effort, he opened his eyes. The dreadnought's body still smoked behind them as the battlefield went quiet. Soldiers from both sides stood frozen, watching Rhys struggle to rise. Blood ran down his arm. His breathing was slow but steady. Zyrintha helped him sit up. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from something deeper. She had stood in the middle of war zones before, but never had she felt so terrified of losing just one man. The Red Guard stared at her. The last standing commander stepped forward and lowered his weapon. His voice cut through the silence. "Princess Zyrintha, you've broken royal command. Stand down and return with us, or be declared fallen and erased from the royal line." She stood tall, placing herself between Rhys and the enemy. Her voice was firm. Her eyes burned with something hotter than lava. I am already fallen in your eyes. But I have risen in ways your empire will never understand. The commander raised his weapon again. So did the others. But before they could fire, something unexpected happened. A few younger Zalari among them dropped their rifles. They looked at the humans, at Reese, at their princess. And they stepped back. One by one, more soldiers lowered their weapons. Confusion spread like sparks in dry grass. This was not the war they had been promised. This was not the enemy they were taught to hate. The red guard line broke. The battle didn't end with a final strike. It ended with a choice. A quiet choice made by soldiers who refused to kill what they no longer saw. As enemies, Zyrintha turned to Reese. It's over. For now. He looked around, pain clear in his face, but his eyes filled with something more powerful. Hope. The humans began to move, helping the wounded. The Zalari who had defected stood among them. Tools passed between hands. Bandages shared. No orders were shouted, no banners raised. Only quiet unity in a place once meant for death. A week later, Zyrintha stood before what was once the edge of war. Now it had become a place of rebuilding. Cracked metal turned into walls. Ashes swept away for gardens. For the first time, Earth flags and Zalari crests stood side by side. Reese walked slowly, still healing, but upright. When he reached her, she placed something in his hand. It was a small flame crystal from her armor, shaped like a heart. Polished and warm, it's tradition, she said softly. Among my people, this means I owe you my life, my loyalty. And more. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he reached into his chest pocket and pulled out the metal shield charm. The one he had given her before. He placed it back in her hand, and among mine, he said, it means I trust you with everything I am. The two stood together as the wind shifted. No flames, no swords. Just the quiet beginning of something neither empire had expected. A story written not in blood, but in bond. Once, the princess had laughed at human weakness. Now, she knew it had carried her across lava, and into a future neither of them would ever face alone.